So, what is mindfulness training? And again, because I talked to many audiences, in fact, recently, as Valerie mentioned, I was at the World Economic Forum in Davos, and to have this topic be something that political and policy leaders from around the world are interested in I felt like it was an important responsibility to actually convey to them the importance of this. But nobody in that context really had a good sense of what it is, so I'd like to describe it the way that I describe it to them, and I'm sure many of the people in this room are already keen about this topic, so hopefully you'll agree that this is a good way to describe it. So mindfulness, from the way I think about it, is a mental mode characterized by paying attention to our present moment experience without conceptual elaboration or emotional reactivity. So that's a lot of words. And I'm really excited today because we're here for a Mindful Kids Miami event, and my kid is actually in the audience, which has never happened before. Leo, you want to say hi? So the way in which I like, not too much embarrassment there. The way in which I like to think about this, because I think it should be quite accessible, is the way that I would answer Leo if he asked me, what is this mindfulness stuff? And the way that I think about it is it's sort of like thinking of our mind as a remote control or some kind of MP3 player. Most of the time, our mind is in fast forward, thinking about the future, planning, worrying, or it's in reverse, ruminating about the past over and over again about what has already happened, right? And we're great at mental time travel. We can go in the future, we can go in the past. But what we're not so great at is actually being in the here and the now, keeping that button on play. And that's, in my mind, what we're trying to do with mindfulness. We're trying to get the mind to be in the here and the now. So with that in mind, I think a good question to ask is, well, does it work? I mean, it sounds like a good idea, sure. I mean, if you think about it, the only time we're actually living is kind of right now. So actually experiencing it might be a good idea. And I think this is a reasonable question as well. Before we spend any amount of time, effort, or funds trying to get ourselves to be more mindful, we would say, well, what's known about this? And it seems like a simple enough question, but when you look at it a little more deeply, you have to say, well, what do you mean by it? I'm a scientist. I like to break things down into their sort of smallest tractable unit. So it, really, in my mind, are the many different forms of mindfulness exercises that could be offered. And Valerie described some of the main themes in the program that they have, and I'm just describing another one up here that's kind of a foundational practice that's offered in many mindfulness training programs, mindfulness of breathing. But just so you're aware, it's not so much about the breathing as about what the mind is doing in the context of using the breath as a focus. And not about doing anything to the breath in particular. So this is quite different than yogic breathing, for example, where you're manipulating your breath itself. This is just about watching what's happening. And what we tell people to do is, as Valerie said, it's quite non-mystical and pretty ordinary, right? Quite simple. We ask people to just sit in a comfortable upright posture, kind of focus all of their attention on the sensations of breathing. Then we ask them to select something in particular. So for the period of time that you're here listening to me, I suggest you select me as the focus of your attention. I would appreciate that. But when you're practicing a mindfulness exercise, you ask people to select a mindfulness of breathing exercise in particular, the sensations of breathing, and you get very specific. So it could be the coolness of air coming in and out of your nostrils, or feeling your abdomen moving in and out. And that specificity is important because of what's going to happen next. We ask them to maintain their focus there. Not just to select it and move on to the next thing, but to keep your attention there. And the trick now is to know what to do when it's not there anymore. Right? So the mind will wander off. If I had us do this, if you've never done a practice like this before, probably a few seconds before all of a sudden, oh, this is awesome, my mind's not wandering at all. Wait a minute. But the instruction is to just gently return it back to the sensations of breathing. So don't just linger on the fact that you're not on the breath anymore, just bring it right back. So from the perspective that I come from as a cognitive neuroscientist, this was fantastic because the instruction is very clear. The training, a very big part of the training, this mindfulness of breathing exercise, has an instruction to select information, an instruction to maintain your focus, and an instruction to really control your own mind wandering. From the point of view of somebody that studies attention, it had all the ingredients of being able to potentially improve attention if we exercised using this practice over and over again. And that's what we set out to study.